G'day guys, how are we? Welcome to Talking Boxing. A little bit unorganised tonight. I've just raced in here to get things organised. I realise there's a couple of things I haven't actually done properly, so we'll do them as we go. While we talk here, I've just got to get something. There we go. Get myself organised. Again, guys, welcome to Talking Boxing. Yeah, I've got plenty to go through tonight. In case you haven't seen the show before, this is your show. We talk about what you want to talk about. Yes, I've got a bit of an agenda to go through, but all in all, it's up to you guys. So what we want to do is, for you guys, if you've got a question or a comment or whatever, you want to have a crack at me about something, then put the comment in the chat there, and we'll see how we go. So now, as I said, we've got a bit to get through. So what we're going to do tonight, I've got all the Aussie news, I've got all the world news. But what I'm going to do tonight is something a little bit different, and it's something a little bit sort of close to my heart, and my hands disappear there. I'm going to do the top 10 amateur boxers, Australian amateur boxers, that I have seen in the modern era, whether I've been a part of or that I've seen. And I must admit, it was a really, really tough exercise. There's been so many great Australian amateurs over the journey, and just probably like what we did last week with the Australian pros, the best of the modern era. It was really hard because you've got to go by one, whether it's an achievement or is it one solitary performance, is it based on talent? There's so many things to go over. So and it's strange enough, I've got two of them texting me now, totally unrelated, and they're texting me right now. So there you go. But both of those guys will be on the list as well. So as I said, we're going to go through all of the Aussie news, all the world news, and by all means, make sure you put a comment or a question in the section there. As I said, I've got a lot to get through myself, but this is your show. I really want you guys to comment and run the direction of the show. That's that noise you probably hear there. Is I'm going to put this on silent. I think it is because they keep texting me. Is that ironic that I've got two guys that I've been away with numerous times, and they're on the list tonight, and both of them texting me now for unrelated issues. So I'll get back to you later, boys, if you happen to watch. So plenty going on, as I said, in the Aussie boxing scene. We'll get to it in a minute. We've got Cambosis and Haney 2. We've got Purro and Jarvis. We've got Foley and Spark. All the sparks of that, of course. We've got O'Connell and Bridges. It's all happening at the moment. So, again, comments in there. I really want your feedback about the ways, as I said, the direction of the show is going to go. So let's get on firstly to Cambosis and Haney. Now, excuse me. Now, you would have seen the fight has been announced since October 16th at Rod Laver Arena. Now, this does make sense. If you've watched the show in the last few weeks, you will have seen that I really doubted that if they did do it in Melbourne, that they would do it again at Malvern Stadium. Malvern Stadium. Where are I'm sorry, I've just got one. Yeah, thanks, Annie. What is it? Marvel Stadium, not Malvern Stadium. I've had a few shows there in the past. So, yeah, it's just been one of those nights I've been a little bit disorganised. So, yeah, so Marvel Stadium. October the 16th. Make sure you get there. It's going to be a great show. Not quite sure of the undercard as yet. There has been a few murmurings. I have had a bit of feedback from a few people in the know. And I can't really sort of say too much because in this instance, there are a lot of fights still in progress. A lot of wheeling and dealing going on. And obviously promoters want to keep it under wraps. So the sources I do have told me some of the fights, and it will be a humdinger, that's for sure. But Rod Laver Arena, I think it really suits the card or the show a lot better. I am a little bit surprised they didn't take it to Sydney. I think there would have been the need for it up there being George's hometown. I understand the whole Greek thing in Melbourne, that's great, but I think I've said it a couple of times in the past that the thing with Melbourne people, they'll come out in droves. They are the most supportive people when it comes to, well, not just Melbourne, but Victorian people. When it comes to putting on events, they support the event. And I mean, I've got first-hand experiences. I remember we did, it was a Rafa Horn fight back 2019 in Bendigo, of all places. So it's still an hour and a half out of Melbourne. We had 5,000 people there. Probably could have sold another 1,000 people, excuse me. So I probably could have sold another 1,000 seats that night. So, and that's in a regional city. So, and of course, this one, what was it, 42,000 or 41,000, whatever it been, which I think from what I've heard, people in the know, might have been a little bit light. But still, when you get 41 to 42,000 people, geez, you can't begrudge that. So, but yeah, so there it is. It's in Melbourne, October 16th. Who would you like to see on the show? It'd be interesting to see who. I know, I will say, and I think it's pretty common knowledge that the Maloney boys will be on the card. Haven't got the exact opponents yet. I think that's still obviously in the works. We're still a long way out, but both Maloney's will be on the card. And I heard there was a prospect of being another world title fight. This is a male world title fight. It still might happen, but the odds are it won't. But the odds are, from what I've heard, there's going to be a female world title fight on the card against a local. So that will be awesome. Again, I won't spill the beans now because the people that told me will never tell me a secret again. But look, just great news for us, Aussie boxing. And when you put that on top of the Tim Zhu situation, the O'Connell Bridges situation as well. We've got Paro and Jarvis. Just a great year of boxing. And, you know, you get on here every week, whether it be this show or the deep dive show. And there's always just so much to talk about. So because there's just never a dull moment. So tonight, a little bit more dominated by the the world scene. But as I said, we will go over from what I've seen with the Aussie stuff as well. So there you have it. So it'd be interesting to see. I do see that George is starting to pump the fight up a little bit now. And I suppose I think he's the type of guy who really needs to work himself mentally into it, even though it's still a couple, or was it three months away. He's starting now to really get in the mindset. I really hope, and I've said this in the past, big admirer of George, but I really hope he probably just downplays the whole thing a little bit this time. You know, I think we weren't critical, but we discussed the fact that he spent so much time promoting it. There was so much of the back and forth. His team got involved. I really hope it doesn't get like that again. And I think this time, Haney will be, you know, they were actually quite well behaved, I thought, last time. But who knows what will happen. But let's just hope that everyone just sort of, keeps it on the down low a little bit, and we have a great event. So there it is. So Marvel Stadium, October 16th. The Maloney boys will be on there. There'll be a female world title fight on the undercard. And as I'm allowed to, rest assured that you guys will be the first to know, whether it be this show or the deep dive show. So onto the Paro Jarvis card now. I did say this on the show on Thursday night or Friday morning when the show came out. I'm a little bit bewildered or perplexed, whatever you want to call it, that we haven't actually had an exact date. Now, it's supposed to happen in September. So we're obviously, this is the 1st of August today. So we could be 6, 7, 8 weeks away, and we still haven't got a location or a venue. Or I know there's been some murmurings of undercard fights I'll get to in a minute, but I just think it's strange. And as I said last week, you've got the Jarvis team and Paro team both in training. So they're training for 8 weeks away, for 6 weeks away, for 7 weeks away. We don't really know. So it's a little bit odd at this stage. Now, I know they've had all sorts of dramas with getting a location or a venue, understand that, but I would think that maybe they'd be looking at that. Now, I have actually heard a whisper as well that they might be postponing the fight by a month. Now, don't quote me on that. I just have heard a whisper that it might be the mid-October, which would put it right before or around the Cambosis Haney card. So I've got a feeling maybe what Eddie Hearn might try and do is maybe piggyback on the back of that. The only issue I've got, if they expect people to pay for a pay-per-view, and you guys are the customers out there, would you pay, let's say it's the night before, which is being talked about, would you pay for the Paro and Jarvis fight on the Saturday night, and then back it up with the Cambosis Haney on a Sunday? I'm not sure whether they will. Now, if it's a free fight, no drama, that'll actually work in well, but money's got to be recouped somewhere. All these things cost money. And, I don't think the gate will be massive. I wouldn't have thought there'll be more than a couple of thousand people there. I wouldn't have thought. So how are they going to recoup the income? You would think that Jarvis and Paro would both be on some good coin. I have heard rumours, but I won't say it on here, of course, that there's quite substantial purses, probably not as much as they might get, on the open market if it went to purse bid or whatever. But it's an interesting one that, it is a pay-per-view, and I'm assuming they'd want $60 or something for it. Would you back up again on the Sunday for another $60? I'm not sure I would. Or a lot of people out there just simply can't. They're going to have to choose one or the other. So anyway, time will tell. I have heard that Sky Nicholson will be on the undercard fighting Mousy Jacobs from Tasmania. That is doing the rounds at the moment, so she'll be on. I'm assuming I'll try and get Dempsey and McKeon on. That's probably, I've heard that, but it hasn't been confirmed. So that's interesting that he's on. I'm just assuming, sort of making up who else I think will be on the card, but it's an interesting one. So anyway, we'll keep the ear to the ground. But as I said, I just think it's a little bit odd that the start of August for a show that's meant to be sometime in September, we haven't got a date or venue. And if it does go to October, well, probably makes a little bit more sense. So if you guys have heard anything, let me know. It's what we're doing. We're talking boxing here, so let it out. So that's what I'm hearing at the moment. The other one that we spoke about last week on the show was Dara Foley and Stevie Spark. Now, this is an intriguing one. I'm really looking forward to this one. I think Stevie Spark wins the fight, but I am really impressed with Dara Foley. The only thing I think is that he's probably getting a little bit on in years. He hasn't really been active, so I would think the young bull in Stevie Spark would get the chocolates. But I think for the build up, and Dara Foley, just like most of the Irish guys, they're pretty entertaining in the lead up to the fight. So I think they'd be good. Dara Foley's an entertainer, so I would really like to see that. As I said, I think Stevie Spark gets the win, but it'll be interesting to see if it can come about. Now, it's interesting, as always with the boxing promotions, you've got one side saying, hey, we've agreed to everything. It's their side that aren't doing the right thing. And then the other side have now said, well, no, we've agreed to everything. It's their side not doing it. And what happens is it goes back and forth. Let's hope that we don't behave like a lot of the American promoters and the teams, where it's just a lot of pandering and nothing gets done. I've got one to actually talk about a little bit later in the show about that as well, about a similar situation happening. So let's hope they can get it done. You would think that with no limit involved, I mean, they've got the TV money, they've got all the backing, they've got the sponsors, they've got the fighters. I would think it should be pretty easy to come about, and I would think that both fighters would look. I think they probably get well paid, but I think that if it really came to it, they could probably both maybe take just a fraction less just to make the fight happen, because there's big implications for both fighters. Dara Foley, when you think about it, I think he's 35, 36. Not a lot left in the tank for Dara as far as opportunities go. So he needs to beat Spark to have any chance of getting some sort of big fight down the track. Stevie Spark obviously wants the scalp of Dara Foley. So, so hopefully it comes off. I'll be looking at it intently. I'm not sure what sort of dates they're talking about at the moment, but I'm not worried about dates. Let's just get the fight done. I think it'd be a ripper for Aussie boxing on top of the Cambosis fight, the Tim Tszyu fight, the hopeful O'Connell-Bridges fight, and just be another blockbuster year. And then obviously Nikita, I think Tszyu will be back later in the year as well. So so I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say about that. The final thing with the Aussies at the moment, we'll go over the box rec side of things at the end of the show. Not a lot happening as far as local fights go, but we'll go over it anyway. So what you guys think about O'Connell and Bridges? I know I went over it last week, but from what I've been hearing, we're very close to having some sort of agreement take place. Obviously, you've got a little bit of the egos involved, where not so much from the no limit guys. I think they just want to get the fight done. Eddie Hearn, I've got a feeling he might feel a little bit railroaded here. He didn't want Ebony to fight Shannon. Now he's been forced into it, so he's probably going to play some funny buggers, I think, in the lead up to, to getting a deal done. But from what I've heard, both parties are amicable in what they're doing, and I think we'll have an announcement pretty soon. So, but just look, I think it'd just be great for, again, we talk about it, not just women's boxing, not just Australian, but world boxing. We need these big fights. So I think it'd be great. Who have I got? Sparks or Foley? Yeah, I think Spark gets it, mate. I think Spark, just being the younger, I think he's a little bit more hungry. I'm not sure whether Dara Foley's got the arsenal to keep Stevie Spark off. And I think I've said before, I don't factor the Tim Tszyu loss into any way I look at Stevie Spark. Went up 2 divisions on a week's notice or whatever it was. So I disregard that. I've looked at what he's probably done since then, and I think that fight really has matured him as a fighter. And I think he will take this opportunity, because a couple of fights I've seen him since then, he looks hungry. He looks ready to take his chance. And even though he got sparked by Tim Tszyu, I think that he's raring to go for this opportunity. And I think he'll get the job done over Foley. So yeah, the O'Connell Bridges thing fight. I've got a feeling. I'm not sure it'll happen. September they're talking about, but I've got a feeling they might come to an agreement, and it might be late. What that would be all these proposed fights taking place. So I haven't been told, sort of guessing what might happen, but my feeling says that I'll come to it probably, and the fight will be start of October or whatever. But we'll see. And as usual, as soon as I know, I'll let you guys know. So on to before we'll get into the world stuff. No. I'm going to go through the amateurs for stars while with the Aussie scene, because I don't want to sort of get lost in the mix. And I've got a few points I want to go over with the world stuff. So what I'm going to do tonight is the top Aussie amateurs of the modern era. When I say the modern era, I'm thinking the 80s onwards, because I don't like to judge on things I just have no knowledge of. If I went back to the 60s and 70s, I'd be guessing, and I don't want to do that. And I don't really go on reputations. A bit like what I do with the pound for pound list when we're going back to 1890 or something. Well, we didn't see those guys, so I just don't think it's relevant to be able to rate them. So as in this case, a lot of these guys I've had a bit to do with, I must say. So what I'm going to do is go through from 10 to 1, and then I'll put the whole list up at the end of it for you guys to have a look at. Be kind. It's just my opinion. Again, everyone's got their own opinion. And as I said at the start, it's really hard to judge them properly sometimes, because you're going on pure ability versus each other. Maybe a one-off performance, or the whole body of work, or in some cases all of it combined. So it's a little bit hard. I've ranked them all 1 to sort of 10 on all of them. So we'll see how we go. So number 10 is Daniel Gill. Now Daniel Gill, strange enough, took my spot once I retired, and I didn't really get to know Daniel. I retired in 98. Daniel come on the scene after that and won a Commonwealth Games gold medal in 2002. Obviously, also a 2000 Olympian as well. Just a really, really, really good amateur fighter. Had some really good results internationally, and obviously went on to great things as a pro. 2-time world champion. Fought the likes of Triple G, Miguel Cotto, Anthony Mundine, Felix Sturm. So many great fighters over the journey. I know we're going to keep the pro stuff out of this, by the way. It's strictly amateur, so don't have a go at me because of what they did as pros. This is strictly amateur. Daniel Gill, really, really talented young guy, and one of a couple of Tasmanians in this list, by the way. Just a bit of a hint. So really well represented there, the Tasmanians. Daniel Gill, as I said, 2002 Commonwealth gold medalist. Lost at the Sydney 2000 Olympics, and strange enough, another coincidence, he lost to the same guy I lost to in the World Championships a couple of years earlier as well. So figure that out. It's amazing. It's a small world sometimes. But I've got a lot of respect for Daniel as an amateur, and I've got him at number 10. All right, number 9 is a guy I know very, very, very well. I've been on numerous trips with him, most notably the 96 Olympics. I'm referring to Hussein Hussain. Really, really underrated guy. We know what he did as a pro. He fought Jorge Arce twice, fought some other good fighters internationally as well. Obviously, he got a great brother in the dull, Skinny Hussein as well. But Hussey was just one of those really tough, uncompromising fighters. I think, look, the shows or the tournaments I went to him with, I always thought he was always suited to the pros, always. He always struggled a little bit in the amateurs because it took him a while to get going. He had that real, pro style, probably a little bit like a Mexican style. Takes him a while to go through the gears. Great body puncher, great inside fighter. Again, went to the Commonwealth Games, Olympic Games, and numerous, I think a couple of World Championships as well. So just a really, really class fighter and human being, as Hussein. It doesn't really get talked about enough, I think. But I've got him at number 9. So look, I think he won a medal at the Commonwealth Games. I think I was with him at the 98 Commonwealth Games. Maybe he got bronze. I can't remember. But in those divisions too, really, really hot divisions. Those lighter weight divisions. You're coming up against some great fighters, and really, really hard divisions compared to the cruiserweights, heavyweights, whatever. At that flyweight or light flyweight, whatever it was. I might even be bantamweight at the end. Just a really, really good, tough fighter. So There it is. So Hussein Hussain at number 9. Now, number 8, I've gone for a fighter that I never actually got to meet, but I admired from afar because he was on the Australian team before I was lucky enough to make it. And I'm referring to the Bully Blaster, Shannon Taylor. Now, I remember him, and I just remember praying that he'd turn pro or be gone by the time I hit the Australian team in 92, I think it was. Shannon... he never got to go to the Olympics because he ran into a guy that I'm going to get to in a second, a little bit higher up the list. But he did beat Spike Sheeny in the state title after Spike Sheeny won an Olympic silver medalist. So very, very close fight with Costa Zoo as well. Very, very, in that time back then, Costa Zoo was world champion. And if you haven't seen the fight, look at it on YouTube because he was just a beast. He was light welterweight, I remember, when I was sort of starting to come through. Ended up a welterweight, which was good. But as I said, I just remember him fighting these guys, and he was tough. He was hard. Again, fought a lot like a pro. And I suppose a lot of Aussies did back then. We weren't really up with the way it is now with the Europeans and the way, it's almost like that arm fencing. They're in and they're out, the left and the right, and they're doing all these fancy footwork and punching as they're stepping off. All that sort of stuff didn't really exist on the Aussie team back then. Very, very uncompromising fighters we were back then. But Shannon Taylor, just as tough as they come. Obviously did great things as a pro as well. Fought Shane Mosley for the world title. Also fought Anthony Mundine as well. So a lot of respect for Shannon. As I said, I've never met him. Always respected him from afar. And as I said, I was always glad that I never actually got to fight him in the ring because he was a beast. So Shannon Taylor at number 8. All right. And guys, as I'm going, you've got any other feedback on the numbers here? Whether you think I've got it right or wrong, let me know. I know a lot of you guys out there probably don't know a lot about these guys. And this is why I'm actually doing this. We spend far too much time on the pros, and I hate the word amateur, by the way, because it almost implies that these guys don't know really what they're doing. They did change the name to Olympic-style boxing at one stage. I don't know what happened there. They went back to amateur, but I've always hated the term amateur because, as I said, it just means that almost implies that you're a beginner or a novice, whatever. Mate, these guys, I would back the ones I'm listing here probably to beat the majority of pros. A lot of them did obviously go pro, but a lot of the best amateurs in the world I would back to beat the best pros. So there's Shannon Taylor at number 8. So far we've got Daniel Gill at 10. We've got Hussein Hussain at number 9. We've got Shannon Taylor at number 8. On to number 7. Now this is a more recent guy. I think you could all agree, and I almost was tempted to put him a little bit higher, but didn't really have the body of work, I think, of a lot of the other guys there. And I refer to Harry Garside. I've got him at number 7. Now, I know he's just won a Olympic bronze medal and a Commonwealth Games gold medal. So, look, superstar. It probably one of those fighters that come good at the right time. I don't think he went really well at world championship level or some of the other big tournaments, but he just come good at the right time. And look, take my hat off to Harry, but as I said, I just think the ones above him might not have necessarily had the achievements, but over the journey, I think the competition might have been a little bit harder, and they ran a lot longer. And it's a very hard thing. If you sit down there and try and do it yourself, it's an extremely tough exercise. So I've got Harry Garside, super impressed with him at the Olympics. You could see he was one of those fighters that have come through the AIS and the Aussie boxing program in the right way. When I finished in 98, it was Bodo Andreas' first year. Now, I'm not sure if you all know who Bodo Andreas is. He was the national coach for like 20-odd years, I think it was, a long time. Anyway, I'm not quite sure. But he brought in the whole European style, and that's probably why a lot of us got pushed out because, we're all set in our ways. We're used to fighting a certain way. He came in, he brought that whole style that was dominant at world level into the Aussie boxing scene. He made everyone full-time or semi-full-time, or whatever you want to call it. And people were starting to live at the AIS. He implemented this system, and Harry Garside is probably the result of that over that whole journey. So you can see the way he fights, very much like a European style. He's in, he's out, leads with the left, leads with the right, very nimble on his feet. All about scoring, not about knocking out guys or whatever. It's just about getting the point and getting out, like I said, arm fencing. That's the way I sort of see it. So Harry Garside, and obviously I think he's going to go very, very well in the pros as well. So you look out for Harry. But I've got Harry at number 7 in the top 10 amateurs of the modern era. Number 6 is another guy who I was really glad not to see when I first made the Aussie team, and that's a guy named Stefan Scriggins. Now, again, a very, very underrated fighter. He was actually the welterweight at the 92 Olympics. I think the 90 Commonwealth Games as well. He might have been in there. Actually, good point there, Damien. I'm going to go back there. I'll just back to Hussey, mate. Number 9, yes. Hussey's been inducted in the Australian Boxing Hall of Fame this month. Yes, and if you want to go to the the Australian Boxing Hall of Fame dinner, make sure you get there. It's in Melbourne. I'm just going to see the date. I've got it here, Damien. So where are we? It is the 26th of August. So Hussey will be inducted there along with Sharon Anyos, Len Dittmar, Gary Sinclair, George Cambosis will be the fighter of the year. So, I was just saying, Damon, I'm sure whether you've seen the whole show, what a great fighter he was. Doesn't get talked about enough, if you ask me. So if you get tickets, go through, Damien, your memory there, 0409 851 318. That's 0409 851 318 if you want to get tickets to the international. I've got the international on my mind. The Australian Boxing Hall of Fame. You'll get to rub shoulders with the likes of Jeff Fennick and Barry Michael and Lester Ellis, and well, they're all there. It's just too many to name. But it's a great night, great value, and it's a really good night to get there. So number 6. Stefan, I'll just get rid of that there. Where are we there? Hi. Stefan Scriggins. So he was the welterweight Australian champion for a long time. I think actually might have come up from light welterweight a couple of years earlier, it might have been, but he was the welterweight representative at the 92 Olympics. And as I said, he turned pro after that. I was really happy to see the end of him because if you haven't seen Stefan, he's about, 6'2", 6'3". I'm just a tad under 5'8". That's what I tell everyone anyway. So he was a handful, and he had that, probably one of those earlier guys to have that style, that in, that out, really high guard, so tall. He punched from long range. 91 World Championships bronze medalist, I think it was. And I think he didn't go to Seoul, just the Barcelona Olympics it was. But yeah, he went to the Commonwealth Games, World Championships. Had some great fights with Shannon Taylor. That's the reason why Shannon Taylor couldn't get to the Olympics, because of Stefan Scriggins. He did turn pro. Didn't really hit the heights that he had as an amateur, but just a really, really great amateur in the day. I'm not quite sure how many fights he had, but I think it might have been a couple of hundred or whatever, which is really not seen in boxing circles, or it wasn't back then anyway. So, and I think just with Stefan too, I think that the welterweight division he was back in then, the competition there, the Cubans and the Russians and these, they were just absolutely elite. And maybe I'm wrong, you can correct me. I just don't think, from what I've seen at the recent Olympics, Commonwealth Games, World Championships, I'm not quite sure. Maybe I'm a bit biased by my time. I just don't think the competition is as good as it was back then. I know it's 30 years ago. Maybe I'm just one of those old timers that just think my era was better. But when I watched, I just thought the competition these guys fought back then might have been a little bit tougher. Thanks for that, mate. Go Hussey. Yeah, congrats to Hussey. Yeah, he's a great guy. He obviously had a bit of a health scare last year and come through that. And if you haven't met him, he's just such a lovely, lovely guy. Roomed with him a couple of times overseas, and he could fight. He was as tough as they come. As I said, one of the best body punchers you'll ever see. Not quite as good as his brother, I will say, but still a really good puncher. All right, let's go to number 5. And this is another Queenslander. This is Darren Obar. Now, if you haven't met Darren Obar, he was probably always the unofficial leader of the team. Or when I say unofficial, he was probably the official, because he was always the captain of the team. Went to the 88 Olympics. I don't think he went to 92. Again, correct. Actually, he might have went to 92, but I remember his last Australian titles was my first. It was in 92 in Darwin. I think he won his 10th Australian title. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. It was either 9 or 10, the most of anyone that has ever won the Australian titles. He probably didn't get the results that some of the other guys got, but over that journey, he had so many fights, and I think he was light middleweight at the time. Really, really tough division. Probably apart from welterweight, probably the most competitive and most saturated as far as people go. It's the most common weight of most people if you think about it. That sort of 70-kilo mark, the average person is. So he had a really, really tough division. I remember him at Seoul fighting the 88 Olympics and 92. And he went to Commonwealth Games, Australian Championships, all that sort of stuff. But as I said, 10 Aussie titles. I don't think you can go past Darren Obar as far as number 5 goes. We're into the top 4 now. We get down to the nitty-gritty. Now, this is another Tasmanian, a very, very good friend of mine who I became very, very good friends with over the journey. I refer to Dustin Crawford. Now, Dustin Crawford, again, probably a little bit like Darren Obar, probably didn't reach the heights as far as results go, but the reason why he didn't, because for some reason he always came up against the world champion or the number 2 in the world or number 3 in the world, and he always drew the hardest guys all the time, but you've never seen anyone that trains harder, that the mindset, he was just an absolute beast. And when it comes to the Australian boxing, no one could get near him. No one could get near Crawford, and he would fight from middleweight up to heavyweight. That's the sort of guy he was. And I remember I went to Western Samoa with Crawford in 93, my first ever international event. We both had 4 fights in 4 days, so it wasn't an easy show, but we both won. But I remember sort of connecting with Crawford really, really well. He was a little bit of a hero of mine because I'd seen him at the Olympics and all that sort of stuff, and I really had a lot of time for Crawford. And I'm not sure whether you seen my interview with him a few months back. It's on YouTube if you want to check it out. But as I said, I've got so much respect for Crawford. Still gives a lot to boxing to this day. But I remember the 96 Olympics, he came up against, what was his name? The Russian, I can't remember, his name escapes me now, world champion, Olympic gold medalist. So, of course, Crawford draws him in the first fight, and he got hit on the back of the head during the fight. The other guy should have been disqualified, but he got hit on the back of the head, he got knocked out, and that was it for Crawford at the Olympics. And then, unfortunately, in the 98 Commonwealth Games, he was taken off at the 11th hour off the team for specified reasons as far as stuff to go with the coach, with Bodo. It's a little bit of a, get the story out anyway. Crawford tells it really well, but he didn't get to go to 98, but he went to 94 in Canada. And as I said, he went to the World Championships. I think he fought Raymond Garvey, the Cuban, at the World Championships in 91. So he just couldn't catch a break, this guy. But he always come to fight, always gave these guys the best fights you could imagine. And again, the body of work, I've got Crawford at number 4, one of the best we've had. Number 3, I've got the cowboy, Justin Rousel, one of the most talented fighters you'll ever see. Competed in the lightweight division. Johnny Lewis, who trained Jeff Fennick, of course, and now training Harry Garside as well. He also trained, obviously, Costa Zoo, Jeff Hardy, you name it. Anyone worth notice come through Johnny Lewis. He said that Justin Rousel was probably the most talented fighter that he's ever worked with, which is saying a lot. I'm assuming Costa Zoo might have been up there, maybe Jeff Fennick, but he had so much respect for Justin Rousel. But, went to the Olympics, Commonwealth Games, World Championships, and again, it came up against so many great fighters at lightweight. But over the body work did so much, and a really, really great fighter was Justin Rousel. So if you haven't seen him, check him out on YouTube. I'm sure there's some footage of him. So that is number 3. Now, the top 2, this might be a little bit controversial for my top 2. I'll explain as we go. But number 2, I have Graham Spike Sheeny. Sheeny or Shaney, however you want to say. I'm going to call him Sheeny. Another one of my absolute heroes. I remember watching him at the 88 Olympics. He won the silver medal. He come from nowhere. He got a great draw, but he beat all the guys he come up against. Made it to the finals. He got beaten by the Russian in the final. He went to the Commonwealth Games a couple of years later, and he got upset. He got stopped in the first round by the Canadian. Look, by rights, if you get to winning an Olympic silver medal, you should be the greatest amateur of all time, really. But the reason I haven't chosen him as number 1 is because outside of that magnificent performance that he had at the Olympics, didn't really hit the heights. Yes, he went to some big tournaments that never really medaled or won any big fights after that. So that's probably why I didn't put him at number 1, because apart from the Olympics, again, I know that should be enough, but I've got him at number 2. So number 1. So drum roll there. And I still love Spike Sheeny, by the way. I remember watching him at 88, and he was, after watching him win that silver medal, I vowed that I would go to the Olympics, and I vowed to go one better. Didn't get there, of course, but I was probably along with about another 50 other fighters vowed the same thing. We didn't get there, but he was my main motivation of getting to the Olympics that I went to in 96. So number 1, drum roll. Probably no surprise here to a lot of people in the know. It's Robbie Bomber Peden. For me, just across the board, it's probably the most talented amateur that I've seen. Just had absolutely everything. He had unbelievable skills, but he could also knock out a horse if he hit him right. Just one of those guys. I don't know how good he could have been if he had a really dedicated himself training-wise and outside the ring. But I've got a feeling that almost made him who he was. He's just one of those fighters who, yeah, he probably didn't train as hard as a lot of the other great fighters out there or commit himself, but he always got the results. I remember I went to a few tournaments with him, mainly obviously Olympics, he was our big hope at the Olympics. I remember in '96 he won the first fight, and he come up against the Bulgarian Todorov. In his next fight. Todorov, if you don't know, is the last person to beat Floyd Mayweather. He beat Floyd Mayweather Jr. in the semis at that same tournament. So he beat Bomber. I remember that Bomber, for some reason, I don't know whether he didn't eat properly or I remember he got hit in the belly and he actually vomited up afterwards. He just wasn't well. So, but Todorov, he was a great amateur, just a brilliant fighter. But over that, I mean, I remember seeing Bomber hit people and they'd spin around and do a pirouette before he knocked them out, and just so effortlessly in Australia. Just an absolute gun amateur. Won the Commonwealth Games gold medal in '94. Went to the '92 Olympics and '96 Olympics. I went to the '93 World Championships with him as well. But he just went to so many tournaments, won so many medals. As I said, it probably could have been out of him and Spike, but I just think over the journey, Bomber just had so many great performances, medals, all the rest of it, and really performed consistently at all the tournaments, where Spike, as I said, only really performed at that one big tournament, even though it was the Olympics. So I'm going to actually put it up here if I can work out how to do it here. Where are we? But I'm going to share my screen. Where are we? If I put it up there it is. So forgive me here, guys. And you can see the honourable mentions there: Rick Temperi, James Swan, Paul Miller, Jamie Nicholson, the late Jamie Nicholson, Richie Rolls, and Jared Fletcher. I've put in there as honourable mentions. Rick Temperi, he was just he had hands the size of plates. He was just a beast. Not the most talented guy in the world, but just hard and tough, and you always knew you were in a fight with Rick. He also went to the '92 Olympics, '96 Olympics, '91 World Championships as well, and I think it might have been the Commonwealth Games in there as well. I'm not sure, maybe '94 Commonwealth Games as well. So that's Rick. James Swan, I had the pleasure of going with Swanee. I used to room with Swanee a fair bit as well. I love him. I was his minder when we used to go away, and just a great young guy. I really hope he's doing well. I haven't spoken to him for quite some time, but I really hope that he's doing well, and got a lot of time for him. Paul Miller won the Commonwealth Games gold medal in 2002. I actually had the pleasure of fighting Paul in '97, just as he was coming in onto the scene as just out of the juniors. So I fought him in '97 at the Nationals. Great guy, and I think he might have went on to be an actor or something after that in America, I think, from memory. I know he's back home in Australia now, but just a brilliant fighter, trained by Steve Dara up in Queensland. Steve also trained Jared Fletcher as well. Jamie Nicholson, well, we can't say enough great things about Jamie, the late great Jamie Nicholson. He was the brother of Sky Nicholson, of course, who's doing good things now. He won a bronze medal, I think, at the '90 Commonwealth Games. He also went to the Junior Worlds, the Senior Worlds in '91, and the Olympics in '92 before he tragically passed away in '94. So that's Jamie. Richie Rolls. Now, I've got a lot to say about Richie. I've got the ultimate respect for Richie, mainly because he bounced me off the canvas back in '93 at the Nationals. But he knocked so many people out, did Richie. We got to be really good friends after that. We did a lot of rounds together, sparring after that, because he was the light middleweight and I was the welterweight. So we did a lot of really hard rounds together, become really, really good friends. And again, I hope he's doing really well. I hear that he is. But he was a very, very underrated fighter. He probably didn't. I almost was tempted to put him in at number 10 maybe, or even number 9. But unfortunately, Richie just had a little bit of not being able to really get the results at the top level. No one in Australia could get anywhere near him, but even though he was a great puncher, great boxer, he never really got the results. He went to the 2 Olympics as well, 96 and 2000, and the Commonwealth Games in 98. I think it might have been 94 as well, I think. So, but either way, 2 Olympics in themselves, plus the World Championships, whatever. Great fighter, great guy. And Jared Fletcher, I never had the pleasure of meeting Jared Fletcher, but again, I think he won the Commonwealth Games gold medal in 2002. And obviously did some great things as a pro. So there you can see all the fighters there. So number 1, Robbie Peden. Number 2, Graham Spike Sheeny. Number 3, Justin Rousel. Number 4, Justin Crawford. Number 5, Darren Obar. Number 6, Stefan Scriggins. Number 7, Harry Garside. Number 8, Shannon Taylor. Number 9, Hussein Hussain. And number 10 is Daniel Gill. So that's it, guys. The top 10, of my opinion. I understand that's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but what have we got there? Oh, hang on. What have we got there? Stephen. Now, I'm not sure, Stephen, you haven't come up here, but thanks for this getting sent to me. I'll just go to, so we mustn't, I'm not sure whether we're live on, where are we? I'm going to go to the deep dive page and see this. Stephen Ladd, thanks for the question, the comment there. Stephen, the competition was very good here in the 1980s. Yep, and the 90s too, mate. Such great fighters back then. It was just crazy. So I'm not quite sure why I can't see your question there, Stephen. I've got a feeling you might be on my personal page. But I will go back there now and see if... Okay. All right. So on both. All right. So beautiful. All right, guys. So what do you think about that? The top 10. As I said, it's very, very hard to do. It's just, just my opinion. Yes, I was so blessed to know and go away with a lot of these guys, and obviously fight a couple of them as well. And just great times of boxing it was back then in the amateurs. I think we talk a lot about the pros so much, but I think we sometimes forget about the amateur side of things as well. So what do we got there? All right, guys. So that's it. Hit me with any comments you got there. I'm not sure whether some of the boys have actually seen the list. I've got Crawford and Robbie Peden have been messaging me. I'll have to get through later. I have to message them to jump on live, and they can give me their own views. But look, Robbie's. I don't know if anyone's met Robbie. He's a real character. Still does great things for the Aboriginal community with his the gym in Melbourne, Fitzroy All Stars. Unheralded, he doesn't get talked about enough, if you ask me, as far as his whole career goes. He's kept a low profile, and because he was based in America for pretty much his whole career, bar his last 2 fights, tends to get forgotten. And as an amateur, as I said, I've never seen anyone like him as far as his talent goes, how his power goes, and that's why I've got him as my number 1 ranked amateur boxer of all time. So let us know your comments. All right, guys, let's get on to some world news. Got plenty to talk about at the moment. I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say about some issues I'll bring up now. Yesterday, of course, Danny Garcia, the 12-round decision over Jose Benavides Jr. I was really impressed with Danny Garcia. I thought he fought a really smart fight. Going up to light middleweight, he's been out of the ring for 2 years. I wasn't quite sure what to make of it. I didn't think he was big enough to be a junior middleweight. Maybe, time will tell whether he has got the size. But I was really impressed with his whole, the whole way he went about it. I was a little bit worried early on. I thought he was a little bit timid, a bit passive. I thought Benavides was pushing the pace. But I think he won 10, 11 rounds. I think that was my opinion of Benavides and Danny Garcia. There is talk that Danny Garcia will fight Tony Harrison. I'm not sure that's a really good fight for Danny Garcia just at the moment. I'd like to maybe have another fight or two. I'm not sure whether you guys saw afterwards too the press, not the press conference, the interview in the ring. Really, really touching stuff, and I think it goes to show that we don't really know, what people are thinking sometimes. He got quite emotional when the interviewer asked him about his preparation and his mindset, and he said he'd suffered from depression and anxiety and everything else. And I think sometimes we look at these, whether it be boxers or football players or just celebrities in general, and think they're supermen or women, and forget that they've yes, they earn big money, and that's easy to say, just put up with it, and because you're earning all this money. But I think sometimes the pressure gets to them, and it was actually quite emotional watching it, and it really gave me a different perspective to Danny. I always seen him as a bit of a cocky, brash young guy, and when you even see his dad was a little bit touched as well. So again, you really don't know what these guys go through. So I've got a whole new respect for Danny Garcia, I must say. I thought he handled himself very, very well, and what I liked about it too, it's really refreshing. And even actually not so much Jose Benavides, because he had the gall to say he won the fight, which is anyway. But it was a really breath of fresh air for Danny Garcia to be respectful of his opponent, to be humble. Because all you see these days, it's almost like it's a competition to see who can be the most controversial and the most insulting, whether before or after fights. I just get sick of it. I just think sometimes these guys lose track of why they're admired as fighters. Because we love them for who they are and what they bring, not because of the trash talk and that sort of stuff. So it was really good hearing Danny Garcia, and even his dad, who I've never been a fan of because I think he's a big mouth. Another one of those boxing dads. I was just really happy or impressed by both of them, that they were, as I said, humble and respectful. And Jose Benavides was, until he mentioned the fact that, in his mind, he won the fight, which is just, I don't know what fight he was in, but I know he's supposed to say that, but anyway. What do we got there? Solid win for Danny. Was surprised he called out Erislandy Lara. Yeah, I didn't actually say that, mate. I was surprised as well. I don't think that's a good fight for Danny at all. I think Erislandy Lara, there's a reason why Canelo wasn't interested in giving him a rematch. And Canelo is really a bigger version of Danny Garcia, if you think about it. Probably a little bit more aggressive, of course, a big puncher, but same sort of style. Yeah, I don't think that's a good fight for Danny at all, especially soon, because Lara is actually, and he's middleweight. Yeah, sorry, you did say there, middleweight. So I doubt Danny Garcia is going to go up to middleweight. I think he's way too small for that, but we'll see. What do we got there? Yep, saw the human side of Danny Garcia. Yeah, that's for sure, mate. As I said, I got a whole new respect for Danny Garcia. I thought he was just great. Loved the trunks as well. I don't know, the terry cloth or whatever it was. I liked all the corner. It wasn't satin, and it wasn't, it was really, really cool. It wasn't sequins, or it was terry cloth or something. It looked really good. So yeah, so great to see that side of Danny. Who knows? Maybe we might see him against Tim Tszyu some stage. If Tim Tszyu wins the title, maybe he might defend it against Danny Garcia at some stage. So we'll see. Or maybe even Nikita down the track. I think Danny Garcia will be out of the picture by then, but you never know. So yeah, I'm with you, mate. Great to see the human side of Danny Garcia. I thought he was great. Also, all right, I've got to bring this up, guys. Jake Paul, Hassim Rahman has been cancelled. Who are you going to believe? I don't know. I saw both guys had their little statements out there. Look, from what I've seen of it, in case you don't know, the fight was scheduled to be fought next weekend. Apparently, the contract said £200 for the weight limit. Now, Rahman has then come back and said, no, I'm going to be £215. If that is the case, then Jake Paul has every right to hold him to the contract. Rahman saying, well, no, I want to fight at £215. So he pulled out, couldn't do it. Apparently, 30 days before the fight, Rahman weighed 216. So he was 16 pound over, which is more than manageable for 30 days. It's about 7.5 kilos for a guy that size. It should be achievable. So he apparently a week out, he'd lost 1 pound. He was 215 pound, or whatever it was, or something around that weight. So he then said, no, we're not going to fight unless it's at 200 pounds. So, of course, the whole thing's fallen over. So, look, it's the circus that is these types of things. It really is. Now, there are other conspiracy theories that Jake Paul knew he wouldn't be able to make the weight, but he wanted to be seen as wanting to fight a real fighter. So he's put the stipulation in there, and Rahman, of course, hasn't been able to make the weight. So now Jake Paul can say, well, I was going to fight a real fighter. He didn't make the weight, which is, I don't know. I've got to put it out there because there's boxing news. If it had been a YouTube fight, I wouldn't have been talking about it. But this is a real fight. With the winner was supposed to be ranked by the WBC, the top 15. So we've got to talk about it. But it's just a circus. It really is. We won't give it too much credence. But I did see that Chris Eubank has then come out and said, well, I'll fight him. There's no way Jake Paul will take that. But I've just got to think of the weight difference. If Jake Paul was going to weigh in at 200, he's probably around that mark now. Chris Eubank, even though he fights at 168, he might be, say, 180. There's still going to be about a 20-pound weight difference, at least 15, which is about 7 kilos. So between 7 and 10 kilos if they fought next week. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't think it'll happen. I think Chris Eubank's taking the opportunity to maybe take a bit of a shot. Jake Paul will have his say and, nothing will happen. But I do feel, though, for the fighters on the undercard, I think Amanda Serrano was on the undercard. I'm not quite sure who the others were, but you got to feel for those guys because the whole card's been cancelled, and I just think it's pretty piss poor. But that is the risk you run when you put yourself on these circus cards, that this might happen. But I'm just sick of all the yapping and all the back and forth and all the trash. I'm just over it, And so I've given it as much time as I'm going to give it tonight. So the other one, I saw that Javonta Davis, Ryan Garcia, there's bickering going on. Hasn't been, not even close to being signed. There's bickering going on because Garcia is with DAZN. Davis is with Showtime. Steven Espinoza from Showtime is saying no, because there's been talk. Oscar De La Hoya wants a joint promotion or a TV gig, so it's live streamed on both, or a pay-per-view on both Showtime and DAZN. Showtime, I'm assuming, have first dibs at it. They're saying absolutely not. This is a Showtime event. De La Hoya is saying no. This is going to be a joint DAZN, or we don't fight, or we don't have a fight. Apparently, Espinoza's then come back and said, okay, well, how about we have the fight, and then if there's a rematch, it goes to DAZN. I've got a feeling that De La Hoya maybe knows that Garcia ain't going to be having a rematch if he gets wiped out by Davis, so he's saying no. Look, I can understand the loyalty from De La Hoya to DAZN, but that's going to be the main sticking point of this fight getting made or not getting made. So that's where we're at the moment. They're just going back and forth. DAZN apparently digging the heels in as Showtime. So there is going to be some mediation. I'm not sure what will happen about it, but surely we can't have this. Apparently there has been 2 fights in the past that Showtime have gone in with other pay-per-views with. It's HBO. I think it was Lewis Tyson back in 2002 and Mayweather Pacquiao in 2015. So, and apparently he said that was such a headache that he would never do it again. And you can imagine Mayweather and Pacquiao, oh my God, all the egos and all that, and the advisors and managers and teams and hangers on, what would have been involved in that. It was probably a miracle they actually got the fight made. So he's saying he will not do it. He'll take the first fight and be open to giving DAZN the next fight. So we'll see what happens there, but that's the update on that one. Speaking of Ryan Garcia, I'm not sure whether you guys saw it, but he said that in his opinion, and I'm going to put it on talking points for this week's deep dive show, is that belts mean nothing. Now, I'm not sure if you've seen some of the episodes in the past. I've actually brought this up these days that world title belts are severely cheapened and watered down. There's multiple champions per division now. There's interim champions and silver champions and champions in recess and gold, platinum, you name it. Secondary champions. It's a total clusterfuck, I suppose you call it, for another word. But so this is where we're at the moment with that. So what do you think about that? It's an interesting one. What have we got there, Crawford? Hang on. Oh, there we go. So Crawford, he's not coming up on mine. So thanks for Dara for sending it through. Crawford, if you're watching, mate, yes, number 4, and you're well deserved, mate. So great to have you on board. And if you want to comment in there, by all means, but I can't see your post that's getting sent to me at the moment. So what do you guys think about the world titles? Are they cheapened these days by what's happening in the world with all the watered down belts? Now, I've said this as well. How hard is it, is to have some, and I understand this is for all, the sanctioning bodies, discount the IBO and WBU and IBA and the WBF, all those ones. It's WBA, WBC, IBF, and the WBO, of course. As I said, they've got regional titles. I lose track of all these alphabet regional titles these days. Every fight we seem to have in Australia, and I'm assuming it's the same in Europe and that as well. That it's some. I mean, look at the ones in Australia. It's the Orient, Oceania, Silver, Interim. Left to right, east to west title. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I understand you're almost in the title these days, but the good thing about Mayweather and Canelo and Pacquiao and these types of guys, the top line fighters, they don't need a world title. I know they're in a different sort of league, but I would think that if Garcia fights Davis, does anyone really care that there's no world title at stake? I don't think I would. I wouldn't even take any notice. So just my opinion, but that's what Garcia said. He did. Be interesting to see what the sanctioning bodies come back with. I know the WBA and WBC have come back and weren't overly impressed by what he said. So good luck getting a top ranking with those guys. But I tend to agree. I really tend to agree that if the fight's big enough, you don't need a title attached to it. Leave the titles. And even with Tank Davis, the WBA interim champion, now, I don't even know what that is, what that means. How did he get it? What does it mean? He calls himself the lightweight world champion. Well, he's obviously not because Stefan Haney is. So I don't know. I don't know. What have we got here? Belts have been diluted, but still mean something, or what's the point? Mate, I'll tell you what they mean these days. It's photo opportunities. And I hate to say that because I know these fighters work so hard and they love to get in the photos with the belts. But let's face it, there's some fighters that have had 10 fights and they've got 8 belts. I don't get it. To me, I've been following boxing, since I've been 10 years old or 8 years old, whatever it might be. And I come from the era where it was, the belts. I understand things have changed. I know I'm getting old. I'm in my late 40s now. But they've been diluted, but I don't know. I just almost see them as props. I do. Well, let's face it. Davis's belt is a prop. The WBA belt is not the world champion. It's a prop. I know it's a little bit harsh, but that's just the way I see it. Look, I suppose it comes from even being in the Australian boxing scene of just seeing every single fight on TV and the ones that they're all for these belts, and afterwards they struggle to hold up the amount of belts they've got. And good luck to them. I mean, hey, it's all good. And I know, and the reason I will say why they have these belts is because if you win, say it's the IBO, you get to a ranking with the IBO in the top 15. If it was with the WBA, you get your top 15. I understand the way it works, but some of these guys have to have a cornerman help them hold up the amount of belts they've got. And when you've got the press conference or whatever it might be, and they're all holding 8 belts each, I mean, it goes to show there's something wrong. And the thing is, some of them hold up 8 belts, and none of them are a world title belt. So what is that? I don't know. I don't know. Again, I'm getting old. I understand that. Getting a bit cranky in my old age. But how can you be holding up 8 belts and not one of them are a world title belt? But I hear what you're saying, though, mate. It does mean a lot. It's great for the promotions, all that sort of stuff. But for me, maybe one. Actually, I would say one world title belt, but that's never going to happen. But let's keep with one belt for the major organisations per division. No interims, no in-betweens, no gold, platinum, global, whatever you want to call it. And then maybe have one regional belt, and then that is it. Because even these days, the regional belts have interim champions and gold champions and champions in recess. Come on. Do we really? Let's take an example of the WBA Oceania. I'm just picking that out. I'm not having to go at the WBA. Let's just choose the WBA. I've had a promotion where it's been a WBA interim title. I've had another one where this is the Oceania, WBA East-West Oceania title. And now what the hell is an East-West title? I don't. But we did it because we wanted that on the poster. But that's an example I'm trying to use. But anyway, I can understand where you get that, though, mate. What have we got here? Ryan was Devon's man, though, but never took. He's talented, but he's making excuses. Is this just elaborate there, mate? So Devon Haney didn't take the fight with Ryan, was it? Okay, I'm assuming that's the case. Ryan was Devon's Mando, but never took it. Okay. I haven't really been up to date with that. I'm not sure whether Devon Haney knocked back Ryan Garcia. Anyway, just elaborate on that, mate. But yeah, I think it'd be a little bit different if Ryan Garcia got an opportunity to fight for about mine and you. I think it would change his whole perception. But I do get his point that they don't mean. Let's just say they don't mean as much as they used to. That's what I'm saying. Because back then it was one title, no regionals, none of that sort of stuff. You had to fight and earn your rating. None of this. Well, and I won't mention names here, by the way. I got in trouble for doing that last week. But let's just say you got a fighter that's currently ranked in the top 15, say, I don't know, the IBF. I'm just picking the IBF. An Australian in the IBF, never beaten anywhere near a world-class fighter, but have won some sort of regional title. It's got him ranked in the top 15, which means they're eligible to fight for the world title. For me, that is wrong. Whether you're from Australia, from England, from Russia, wherever, I just don't think it's right that you don't earn your world title shots these days. You earn a ranking with a particular body.
get you in the top 15, and if you're lucky, you get a voluntary defence. And it's happened for some Aussie boxers when you think about it. So, but yeah, I don't know. That's just my opinion. I just like the old days where you earned your ranking and you earned your world title shot. None of this, well, I've beaten some guy who's ranked 100 in the world, but it's just happens to be for a regional title. So yeah, voila, I'm now in the top 15, and here we go. I'm in line for a world title shot. Hoodwinked is the word. That's what's happening. All right, here we go. WBA trying to reduce belts now, but WBC franchises want to be WBA. Yeah, what is that? The WBA super equivalent. I'm with you, mate. This franchise belt. Now, I understand why the WBC did this, by the way, but they've muddied the waters even more. Now, if you don't know the way the WBC franchise works, is what they've done is they've given the WBC franchise belt to the real elite, pound for pound, top 10 fighters, so they don't get in the situation where they've got to strip those said fighters. They can pretty much give them the ability to fight whoever they want. That's what the franchise belt is. But then what do underneath it? They give a regular world title, WBC title to someone else, and then probably an interim. And then there's your silver. So who is the world champion? Will the real world champion step up? That's where we're at. And again, I understand the reasoning behind it to some extent, because as I said, they don't want to get in a position where they have to strip one of their, marquee champions. Let's say it's a Canelo, WBC. He gets to the point where he says, no, I'm going to defend the WBA belt this time, and I'm going to defend the IBF belt, and then I'm going to defend the WBO belt, or the mandatory. So all of a sudden, the WBC haven't had a mandatory defense in 18 months to 2 years, whatever it might be. They might be in a position where they've got to strip him. So this gives them the ability to say, nah, he's our franchise champion. He can be champion for as long as he wants. And then we might give it to someone else. You don't even necessarily have to win it. So anyway, it's a little bit out there, but the WBA, yes, they had the super champion and the regular champion and the gold champion and the in recess champion and all the rest of it. Credit to them, I will say they've tried to reduce it, but when you're reducing from 4 to 3, does it really mean a hell of a lot? I would like it just down to 1. Under special circumstances, there may be the champion in waiting if a fighter is injured or whatever it might be for an extended amount of time. They can maybe get the number 1 and 2 ranked fighters to fight for an interim title, but don't let people fight for a world title just you want more sanctioning fees or whatever it might be. All right, so the elaboration here, what do we got? Now, Ryan was supposed to fight Devon. Okay. After he beat Luke Campbell, but went walkabout. Yeah, he did for a while, didn't he? All right, so he was supposed to fight Devon. Devon was open to fighting him. But Ryan, now I'm not sure, did he get injured? I can't remember. But either way, he didn't fight for a long time. I think his last fight back might have been his first fight in a year, 2 years, or 18 months or something like that. I think he got badly exposed by Campbell anyway. I think Campbell, even though he's an Olympic gold medalist, hasn't really set the world on fire as a pro, and I think he really made Ryan Garcia look a bit average. I think Davis smokes him, but we'll see. So, okay. So thanks for elaborating on that, mate. And really enjoying the comments here. We've got one person commenting anyway. There's a few watching, but Canelo is still WBC middleweight franchise champion. Okay, so not super middleweight. Yeah, I agree with you. Shake your head for sure. So I don't know what the hell is going on there. So you would think that, we'll see, that gives them the ability to say, no, we're not going to strip you. So there you go. Case in point right there. All right, we'll keep moving on anyway. I've got a few more to go through. I did see Mayweather, McGregor too. Won't spend too much time on that. Dana White has said it's bullshit. He's not going to let Conor McGregor do it, but from other reports, it's very, very close to being signed. $1 billion fight. Would you guys pay to see it? I wouldn't. I was intrigued a little bit by the first one. I won't say I don't remember actually buying it. Maybe I did, but forking out that amount of money again for a rematch, no, because I can just see that as a piss take. That is just a money grab. That's all it is. I think the first one you could see there was a crossover thing. All the UFC. Groupies over there love Conor McGregor. He's never a chance to win, guys. So don't get hoodwinked into thinking he's gonna win the second time, because he ain't. Mayweather, whatever, he'll probably get him out of there. Whatever round he bets on himself to get him out of there. And you remember in the first fight, he bet on a late round stoppage, and that's exactly what he got. If he wanted to get McGregor out of there in 2 rounds, I think he could do it between us. So we'll see what happens there. Andy Ruiz has been touted to fight for the WBC champion if he gets past Luis Ortiz, September 4th, I think it is. If he gets past him, it'll either be they're talking about either Deontay Wilder or Joe Joyce, which would be a really good fight. So they're talking about that for the WBC belt if they strip Tyson Fury. And again, the WBC don't want to strip Tyson Fury now, even though he's retired. Apparently, he's got 12 months to make a defense, and then they'll strip him. I don't think they're going to want to do it just in case he wants to come back. They want that sanctioning fee if he comes back and decides to fight the winner of Usyk and Joshua, I think. So, speaking of Fury, though, I did actually see there was talking he was going to fight Derek Chisora for a third time. Now, I hope that's wrong, but Eddie Hearn has been quoted as saying his mail is that Fury's going to come back and fight Derek Chisora, which I think is absolutely ludicrous, but who knows in this world of box? I don't know how you could sell that to the fans. I really don't. I think even the most ardent Tyson Fury fans wouldn't buy that one, I wouldn't have thought. So I can't see that happening. But as I said, with the WBC side of things, I've just got a feeling they're going to wait till 365 days are up before they strip Fury. And who knows? They might even make him the franchise champion just in case. Because let's face it, Fury's big money in the sport, which equates to sanctioning fees and everything else and status. So I wouldn't be surprised if they let him hang on to it for as long as he wants to hang on to and maybe get Ruiz and these other guys to fight for an interim title. Who knows? I did see also, now this is an interesting one. I'm going to put this on the talking points as well. I did see that Usyk and Joshua, the pay-per-view, the Poms are up in arms. Now, they're up in arms because they've got to pay £26.95, that is, for the rematch. Now, I did a little bit of homework on this. This is $50 Australian, which probably works out to about $35 American. And they're up in arms over there. The most expensive pay-per-view of all time in England. Oh my God, the sky's falling and this, and this is the climate that we're in at the moment. Are you kidding me? We pay $60, $70, $80 for a pay-per-view. $60, I think it is for an Australian one, or maybe 50 or 60 for an international one. These guys are pissing and moaning because they're going to pay $50 to see Usyk and Joshua too. So, yeah, I couldn't help myself. I did Google the exchange rate. And, so Pommy's out there. Guys, relax. It's not that bad. Wait till you have to pay $60 to $80 like we do. And I think the Americans might have to pay $80 US, which is over $100 Australian. So I don't think the Poms have got too much to complain about. I did see this too. Tyson Fury apparently wants to fight the strong-arm Thor. I don't know anything about this Thor guy. I did look at him. I did look him up last week. I was going to put this on the deep dive show of a Friday morning. I took it out because I knew I'd cop it from Tassie and Pete about talking about this shit. But again, look, as they say, if it makes dollars, it makes sense. If it's an exhibition, I suppose good luck to Tyson Fury. As I said, I don't know anything about this Thor. But again, please, Tyson, if you're watching, assuming he's not watching, by the way, but please just think of legacy. Don't, although it didn't hurt Muhammad Ali. He fought a wrestler back in the day. So I don't know. Let's hope that he doesn't do that. And yes, cheap buggers. Yes. Thanks, mate, for backing me up there. $50 Australian they're paying, and we pay that. We pay $60 just for the Aussie stuff. So anyway. All right, guys. Now, before I go, let's get into the schedule. There's not a lot to talk about at the moment. I'll go into the Aussie stuff. Just forgive me here. I should have had this ready to go. I'll go in now. What's happening next week or so with the Aussie stuff. Got a show until the 13th of August in Newcastle. I don't know anything about this one except there's Bailey Mannix versus Dan Murray for the ANBF, so the New South Wales state light heavyweight title. It's over 8 rounds. I don't really know anything about that, guys. But on the 20th of August, we have the big time boxing, the Melbourne Pavilion. We've got Susie Ramadan, 8-2s against Tomoko Okuda. Susie is 28-3. Hasn't fought for a year or two, I think, against Okuda, who's 7-3-2. Just a tune-up fight there, I would think. Also on that card is Camille Bella, Khalid Baker, Lucas Miller is fighting Chris Van Den Ees. That should be okay. Mason Smith coming off the loss to Nikita Zhu, of course. He's on there against Jaden Riddle. Don't really know a lot of the other guys on that card, so not much to talk about in that one. And apart from that, guys, there's not another one till early September. We'll go over that a little bit later in other episodes as well. So yeah, that's about it there, guys and girls. I hope you enjoyed the top 10. Before we go, I'm just going to put it up again. Where are we? There we go. Just to go over again, Robbie Peden 1, Spike Sheeny 2, Justin Rousel 3, Justin Crawford 4, Dara 5, Stefan Scriggins 6, Harry Garside 7, Shannon Taylor 8, Hussein Hussain number 9, and Daniel Gill rounds it out at number 10. Honourable mentions to Rick Tempiri, James Swan, Paul Miller, Jamie Nicholson, Richard E. Rolls, and Jared Fletcher. All right, guys. So that's it for this week. Really hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any ideas that you want to talk about, make sure you send them through, guys. Trying to come up with different stuff each week to talk about, but really be good to have you guys on. At some stage, I'm going to risk bringing someone on to discuss it. I have had my internet fixed. I'm just not game enough at the moment to give it a try. My upload speed is apparently a lot better than what it was, but I'm just not ready yet, especially tonight. It's a bit overcast and wet and everything else. So at some stage, we'll give it a go. That's my goal, guys. I'd love to be able to bring you guys on the chat. So hopefully we can do that. But worst case, send the questions through or comments through. Make sure you like and subscribe, as I say. Check out this week's Dream Fight. It's Julio Cesar Chavez and Javonta Davis. And the classic fight this week, if I can remember, is no, I can't remember. That's how good the fight was. No, I can't remember. I haven't made it up yet. So make sure you check it out, guys. Really thankful for you guys for tuning in, and look forward to having you on board hopefully next week. Catches.